Hi, everyone. Welcome to Pockets Full of Soup. I'm your host, Jared Petty, joined today by
Greg Miller. Hey, how are you?
Greg Miller of Kinda Funny. Good to have you here.
Good to have me here, you here. You're on my set. I don't know. It's weird.
I'm on your set. Yeah.
Game Over Greg's show, kindafunny.com.
Exactly. This is the magical traveling set, which is me, the GoPro, and the two mics.
Yeah.
And the sound gear are borrowed from Brian Altano.
You got the right idea. This is the right idea. Trust me. We have the complicated setup and bringing people here, and it's a pain in the butt.
Well, we'd like to improve it eventually, but this is where we're going to start.
Okay,
so
cool.
We get this kind of weird fisheye effect going on.
Yeah, it's like a skate video from back in the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's extreme.
Extreme.
Actually, probably not that
What's
extreme.
Bam Margera going to do today?
So this is our inaugural show, Greg. This is our first episode. You are our
You are
first
doing...
guest.
I'm going to be the first one.
You're the first guest.
Explain what this show is then.
Pockets Full of Soup is a storytelling show that goes off the idea that everybody has a story to tell.
Sure.
And not just about themselves, but the people who make them who they are.
Gotcha.
So I'm going to start with the same first question that I start with every week. If you're
Yeah.
comfortable. You ready to go?
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm ready to go.
Greg, tell me about somebody you're thankful for.
And see, this is I told you before, because you gave me the rough synopsis of this show.
Yeah.
Is it I pick one person for the whole show?
One person for this whole episode.
Do we curse
it doesn't
on
have
this
to. You can curse if you wish.
Okay.
It's up to you. It is entirely up to you. Some guests have cursed. I imagine some will choose not. It's completely yours.
Well, I just wanted to make sure I didn't in your inaugural show drop an F-bomb right out the gate that like screwed everything up for
It's
you.
up to you, man. But whatever the case, understand this is not the person you're most thankful for necessarily. It's
Sure.
just somebody you're thankful for.
Shit.
So tell me about somebody you're thankful for.
Oh man.
Yeah, who could that be?
I don't know. There's so many. I'm a thankful person, as you know, Jared.
I imagine you are.
I try to be nice to everybody and thank a lot of people.
You thank lots of people, and you're nice to everybody I know. I mean, I've never seen you
Thank
be
you.
mean to anybody.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
think of
yeah.
a time you were mean.
Well, I hide that pretty well. I
Okay.
mean, if you talk to these guys in this house, I'm mean to Kevin too much.
Okay, well, I mean, everyone.
Colin and I'll get at it once in a while. I'm mean to kids on the internet all the time.
But who are you thankful for? Who's somebody you want to talk about today?
Do I have to have met them in real life?
No, this can be any human being on the planet Earth, living or dead.
Living or dead.
Yeah,
that I'm thankful.
just someone you're
that-
thankful
oh
for.
My
Yeah.
God. All right, I have my pick.
Get your pick. All right, who is it, Greg?
I want to say that I would have said Tim Grant.
Okay.
You ever heard my Tim Grant story?
No, I haven't heard.
I feel like I've done it on too many podcasts at this
Okay.
point. You know, I don't want to give you I don't want to burn. I don't want people to be like Tim Grant and all this stuff.
Okay.
Tim Grant's the little boy I covered with cancer.
All right.
He changed my outlook on life in a lot of ways.
Okay.
I wanted to throw out Irene Haskins.
Uh-huh.
This is how you get around it because
So-
I just lie about
No,
it.
so this is the thing because we're hopefully going to have you back. So it's not.
Oh.
Like, yeah, it's not like you're excluded from talking about more than one person on.
I just
multiple
feel like I
appearances.
tell the Tim story all the time.
Well, tell the story you want to tell today.
I love telling the Tim story though.
Yeah. Do you want to tell the Tim story?
Yeah, probably because you're gonna have new listeners, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody listen to my episode of Dancers, probably.
I think that it is safe to assume that there will be at least 5 new listeners.
Thank you very much. Then here we go. So the story goes that I went to a little school called the University of Missouri.
Yeah.
The #1 journalism school in the country.
Okay.
Arguable.
Not Brown, not Oberlin, not Iowa.
Well, come on. It's always Northwestern versus Mizzou,
Okay.
or Medill even in Northwestern, which is how pretentious can you be that your journalism school isn't even called like Northwestern? It's Medill. Mizzou's better.
We have a region.
So while I was at the University of Missouri,
Mhm.
the local paper, the Columbia Daily Tribune, covered this little boy named Tim Grant.
Okay.
And they put out this giant piece on him one Sunday, and it was all about he was this child when they were covering him. He must have been 5, and he had this super rare cancer called neuroblastoma.
What about what year was this, Greg?
Oh man, if I'm in school, it must have been about. I'm thinking that it's 2004 that I read about him in the paper, and then I go to work for the Tribune, 2005, right after I graduate college, so into the summer.
Okay, so you're reading about this. You're in college, right about to graduate.
I read about it. It's a story about Tim Grant. Kid has neuroblastoma. He's from a small town on the outskirts of Columbia, and it's a super aggressive cancer. They're going through this crazy treatment. Story ends. He's beaten the cancer. He's cancer free. He gets to go about his life and grow up and be amazing.
Okay.
Don't think never think about it again. Really,
But
you know
it
what I
sticks
mean?
in your mind. You remember reading it.
Exactly. I remember because it was such a well done piece, and going to the journalism school at Mizzou, right in Columbia, you're reading so much that like we're talking and critiquing these articles and pulling them apart and talking about why they worked and why they mattered and why they.
Do you remember who wrote the piece?
I can picture her face, and I want to say it was Sarah. I worked with her for probably about 3 months at the Tribune before she bounced.
Okay.
So while I'm still at the journalism school, we go over for a tour of the Tribune, and in one of those, we were like in the printing press room right there, and with this guy Jim Robertson, who is in charge of the editorial department.
Yeah.
And I just have a moment with him where I'm just like, so are you guys hiring? And he's like, are you asking for a job right now? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, send me your stuff and maybe we could look into it. And I sent him my stuff and I got the job. And I had the job secured that I was going to graduate it was one of those things where I did a summer program, so
Yeah.
I walked in the spring like you do, but then stuck around to do my capstone class.
Okay, so you finished off there, and this guy that hired you, what was his name again?
Jim Robertson.
Jim Robertson. Was he like a Jonah Jameson like editor?
A little bit more soft spoken than that,
Okay.
but like definitely that vibe. And like you know me pretty well.
Yeah.
You know that I like Superman a bit.
Right.
When I get hired there, literally day one, because I'm an icebreaker kind of guy.
Yeah.
I ask if I can call him Chief. And
What
he
did he
says
say?
yes. Or he says yeah. So I called him Chief. I still call him Chief to this day when I see him on
No
the
kidding.
very rare occasion. Yeah. But very Jimmy Olsen thing. But he thought it was the funniest thing. And then he's like, sure. But it was like a good icebreaker because I was like, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. He knows I'm young. This will be a good way to do it or whatever.
So this guy hires you. He's like, hey, why not?
Yeah.
You send him his stuff.
Yeah.
He hires you. You call him Chief.
Yeah.
You come to work at the paper that wrote the article that you read
Right.
about this young man.
And I'm general assignment at the Tribune. And literally on day one, I walk in, they're like, you're going to work Tuesdays through Saturdays.
Okay.
I'm like, no big deal. And as day one's wrapping up, another mentor, another guy I'm thankful for that I'm sure I'll talk about at some point.
Yeah.
George Mazarak comes by, and he's like, all right, cool, and like blah blah blah, and like he's like, you start later on Friday and Saturday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? And he's like, you start late. They didn't tell you this? And I'm like, no. He's like, you're the night shift on Friday and
Oh.
Saturdays. Like they hired you to be general assignment reporter, and you come in at like 4 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon, 4 in the afternoon, and you work till like 2 in the morning,
Okay.
covering everything that happens. And it was like, oh,
So you're the
Didn't know that.
newspaper late shift. All right.
exactly, yeah.
Now, for people that weren't around for back when they printed these magical
Sure.
things called newspapers,
Exactly.
if you finished working on a newspaper at 2 a.m., was that going in the morning edition?
Depends on how crazy that story was. Usually, no. You know what I mean? Like the thing was that the Tribune. Well, the way the Tribune worked, and I'm very rusty on this. You're a good journalist. That's the first time I've been asked that in a long time. The Tribune was an afternoon published newspaper.
Okay.
So it would be that, and like it was one of those weird things where the way Mizzou works and why it's such a popular school for journalism, right, is that there's 2 competing newspapers in Columbia. The Columbia Daily Tribune, which is run by professionals out of college or whatever, and then the Columbia Missourian. And the Columbia Missourian is this weird hybrid of a newspaper and the school, where all the editors, all the people who are like in charge of it are journalists. They teach at the school, they do all this stuff, but the staff every semester is the students.
Wow.
So when you go to the school, like that's always they're going to hang their hat on is the fact that if you come here for a journalism degree, you are going to leave with journalism experience. You leave with a giant clip file of everything you wrote.
So this is, in a way, like while it's still a liberal arts school, it's also like a trade school where you're
100%
immersed in what you're
very,
doing.
very much.
Okay.
And that was what drew me to it. Like, I always talk about it. Like, I was a terrible student in high school, hated high school, just despised it because it wasn't applying to what I wanted.
Yeah.
And then when I got to Mizzou, and it was very much like, you do this to get the, and it was like, oh, this makes sense. I will apply myself for in all of these classes because I know it's going to pay off in what I want to do in the end.
Okay.
Which was important to me. So the Missourian, not the student newspaper, because on top of that, there is a third student newspaper
Okay.
for the school, but the student, staffed editors, they're a daily paper. The Tribune is an afternoon paper.
So there's a lot of staff going on. Did you ever work for the student staffed paper before moving over to the Tribune?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I did that while I was still in college.
While you were in
Like,
school.
before I went to the Missourian, even I went to the Maneater.
So
which is
first
locally.
student staffed, then the Missourian,
Yeah.
then the Tribune.
Right,
That
right.
was your path. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So you made your way to the Tribune. You're working on an afternoon paper, so that means they publish about
Well,
what time?
it means deadline was I'm rusty. Deadline I think was 11 or 11:30 every morning.
Okay.
But then the paper got dropped at 4 in the afternoon or whatever on people's doorsteps. It's
Okay.
printed and out. But I think on the weekends, yeah, it was different that we had a late. I was working late along with George, so it must have been that we were getting it in to get it on people's doorsteps. So I think it all pushed back to where Friday and Saturday you were publishing. The deadline must have been midnight 1:30 or something to get it there to get it out.
Okay, so I have to ask on a tangent here.
Yeah.
Did you ever once yourself or see anyone else run through the room screaming "Stop the presses"?
No, because it costs. God, that screws everything up. You
Okay.
can't do that. And that's the thing. Like I'm watching Batman v Superman, and
Yeah.
Perry White goes in there to pick up spoilers. The end of the paper from the end that says Superman's dead or whatever.
Okay.
And he walks over and picks it off, and he's got a tie. And I'm like, no, they would not let you do that because that's gonna get caught in the roller and kill you.
Oh my!
Like
so
you know what I
can't
mean?
do that. You can't.
Oh,
have
you
ties.
can't have
Too
hanging
dangerous.
clothes. That's like the whole thing about it. Like
Dangerous industrial environment.
100%. Yeah, those things will tear your arm off and not care.
No, I worked in a textile mill. There were
Mm-hmm,
huge dangerous things around. There was a machine that was giant metal legs that
Right.
stuck upward, and they were super hot.
Yeah.
And moved on a conveyor. That was weird. Super
Yeah.
hot giant metal legs.
Yeah.
That's also my European techno pop band. But
Jared.
yep. So we cut back to
Working at the Tribune.
Working
I'm a
at the
general
Tribune.
assignment reporter, and what that means is, and this always cracks me up too. God, I'm making a lot of Batman Superman references. But people, the Batman Superman, right? They somebody was critiquing it on Twitter one day about how like, oh, and then they just tell Clark to go cover the sports one day. Like, how would that ever happen? I'm like, no. I was like, no, that was my job.
Yeah.
Like that's a real job at a paper. Like you fill in the gaps. You go do all this stuff.
You're a Swiss Army knife.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, I guess Tuesday through Thursday, the job was very much like I was doing fluff pieces and this, that, or the other, or writing long form content for the Sunday. Like, here's this feature. I'm doing a business profile. Like, one of my favorite ones I ever did was there is a sex shop in Columbia that's really famous and open at all hours. And so for the business thing, one day I finally convinced them to let me go there, and I spent like 8 hours there on a shift with them till like 4 a.m.
No kidding.
And
Just
like
writing like an embedded.
Exactly. Talking about what, interviewing the people who are working there, what their story is. People would come in, I'd come up and be like, hey, I know this is weird. Can I interview you? And like some were like, yeah, and some were like, no, fucking way, don't get away from me. You know what I mean? But it was super fascinating. Like that was the fun shit I got to do, where I got to do these amazing features. But then it was also like, all right, this senator is giving this speech, and the politics guy's over there, so you go there. And then it was like on the weekends, it was totally like, there was this really famous court, this is, man, we're super inside of Columbia everything now.
No, this is really okay.
Okay.
This is how the stories work.
There was before I got there, again, when I'm working, before I got there to work at the Tribune, when I was still in school, there was a really infamous murder of the Columbia Daily Tribune sports editor.
Oh, wow.
He got killed in the parking lot. And it eventually ended up on Dateline a couple times, all these different things, and like Keith Morrison came through. But this is like years and years and years. And finally they got the killer, the guy that Ryan Ferguson, who got convicted, got out, because they're like, there's not enough. They overturned the verdict, brought him out. And I don't think they ever got the other guy out, because he was the one who died. It was like, it was this huge brouhaha or whatever.
Holy cow.
But it was the thing of like, when that verdict came through, it came through late on a Friday, and so it was like all hands on deck. And like, so I went from like, I always make this joke, but it was a real thing, where I pitched a story about Millie's Quilt Shop that was doing something on a Saturday. But I'd go from like talking about Millie's Quilt Shop, or going off to interview the guy whose photo was going to be used for the Columbia Festival of the Arts poster. I do all these like fluffy, weird things, and then all of a sudden be thrown out into like, go get reactions on this, or all right, Mizzou just beat Kansas. They've torn down the goalposts. You have to go out and cover the scene in the streets. Or it was this thing of like, the one that really rocked me. I mean, I always talk about like, coming to IGN, and then even our lives now, right? Like every day is and was a vacation, based on the fact of like, there was this other one. This one, I'll never ever shake the story of. This guy's getting married. It's his wedding day. It's small town Missouri on the out, because it's like this weird thing when you talk about Missouri. Usually people's thoughts jump to like country bumpkins, whatever. And for me, I think of Columbia, which is a smaller San Francisco. It's a smaller Austin. It's a liberal college town that has all the amenities you'd expect. But then you get 20 minutes outside of Columbia, and you are getting to population whatever, and high school football is our life, and very red, you know what I mean, the blue cities in the red state,
right?
And so in one of these small towns, this guy's getting married. It's his wedding day. Everything's amazing, and his mom and his sister, and I want to say somebody else in the car, but I think it was just his mom and his sister, little sister, went off to get their nails and hair done. They got it done. They came back and hit by a train, killed on the wedding day, hours before the ceremony. And so like, when that happened, somebody else covered the news, but then they wanted this whole like feature on it.
Yeah.
So I had to be the guy going around this small town in a shirt and tie, asking about this. I'm writing about this, leaving notes in their mailbox, because I'm not going to come up and knock on your door or anything. Going to the service that was like the entire town and all the surrounding towns, to where I was standing for this funeral in the back, in like the breezeway. That's not the right thing, but you know what I'm saying. Not there's the front door, and then there's the door to the actual cathedral or whatever.
Right.
I'm out in that area right there.
That area is called the Nave, I believe.
Thank you very much. I was searching.
No, the narthex, not the Nave.
Okay,
the narthex. The narthex. Sorry.
And so I'm sitting, but it's like all these weird things where it was this constantly vacillating scale of like, cool, you're gonna do this, and all right, you're gonna do that, and there's like, okay, this is really sad, and this is really like. I always talk about it. There's this one where you know, my editor George would always give me shit because like on Friday nights at like 10:30 is when like things would really start slowing down.
Yeah.
And so I'd always go over to the AP. We had an embedded AP reporter, and he was the only person with a TV and cable.
Okay.
So when he wasn't there, like on 10:30, he's not there. I go and I sit at his desk and turn on TV, and I'd be sitting there with my tie undone, eating Chinese food.
Okay.
And he always come by. He's like, "You are the stereotype for a reporter right
Yeah,
now."
yeah,
You know
you're
what I mean?
sitting
Like,
at watching a TV with your loosened tie.
Yeah.
Chinese. It's amazing. Oh, and there's a little hat with little thing in it.
pressing it.
You-
Yeah.
press
But no,
second.
we're sitting there like one of those days, and it was always George always had the scanner on his desk. And he, you know, one day he always stand up when there was something big happening. And again, like there's me, there would be there was another cycling person because it was like you took shifts when you weren't the general assignment. We're like, all right, every 2 months or whatever, you work, a Friday, Saturday.
Yeah.
And then there was like this woman Ruth who's super nice, and I forget she just answered phones or whatever. But like there was like 5 people in the office, not including photographers or whatever. And he'd jump up and be like this. And there was one time where you got to go like. Somebody on the most wanted list they think is in this bus. SWAT teams have been deployed. And he was like, yeah, you know, and we jump in my Ford Taurus, me and the photographer, drive over to where they have this bus held up, and you get there, and like we get out and we run up, and like the cops are like, get the fuck back. What are you like, they've got like the M16s, and they've got
they're
this
standing
bus
there.
with like spotlights all around it.
This is a very interesting college town you're reporting.
I mean,
Lots
that's
of
what I'm
interesting
saying
things
is like
happening.
Columbia, like, you know, if I always talk about it, if Columbia had an international airport, it would be Austin.
Okay.
Because that's the biggest drawback. They do an awesome film festival there called True False that's been gaining a lot of momentum. But it's like, okay, cool, you want to go? Like, there's the regional airport that, like, you know, the fucking propeller planes fly into, and then there's Kansas City or St. Louis, and those are 2 hours away. So it's like, do you want to fly somewhere and then drive in? Everybody's like, no, I don't do it.
So you start working at this newspaper.
Yeah.
You start working there on the late night shift.
Yeah.
You're there Tuesday through Saturday.
Yeah.
Into Sunday night.
Right.
And you remember that you've read about this young man in another newspaper story.
So what happened is eventually somebody comes up to my desk and he's like, have you ever heard of Tim Grant? I'm like, I don't think so. Like they explained the neuro. I'm like, oh wait, no, I read this story. I want to say it was Sarah, but it wasn't Sarah. It was somebody else. Rachel,
Okay.
tall blonde woman. I remember her. Now Sarah, by the way, smaller blonde woman. Just in case she's watching the show or listening, think I don't remember the difference. And I'm like, yeah, I remember. And like his cancer's back. It's resurfaced. We want to do another piece on the whole thing or what's going on with it. Like, okay, cool. And like, you're going to be the one to do it. I'm like, okay, great. No big deal. You know what I mean? I can do that or whatever. So I reach out to his family. They're totally down with it or whatever. But like the stakes are another level this time around where it's like, no. He beat it once and now it's back, which means his body, that drug no longer works. Okay. And they were like, that is the drug. Like, we don't have other options here. We don't know how this is going to work. And it was that, all right, there's this experimental treatment, like where he's gonna have to drive it from Columbia to St. Louis 2 hours to get treatments and get this new kind of chemo. Because chemo, of course, cocktails. It's not just one thing; it's multiple things, all these different things. He's gonna have to go there and get this, and it's got a very small percentile chance of working. And I'm like getting all this information downloaded to me. I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'm
now you know a lot about cancer.
sure.
Did you at this point?
No. Okay. This is the story I always tell.
Okay.
Because here, let's go out of time.
Yeah.
So okay, we'll jump out of time. So what we're gonna do is now jump ahead to 2012, right? That's when I got cancer.
I don't know when you got cancer.
Pretty sure it was 2012. Right?
When I met you, you were cancer free.
When did I meet you?
You met me in July of 2013.
Yeah. So then 2012. So 2012. Okay. So 2012. Around this time of year. Which is July right now if you're watching this sometime anchored on YouTube. The video game industry pops off. It's crazy. There's a million things going on. It's E3, it's Comic-Con, it's this, it's that. It's travel every weekend.
Yeah.
And right as we were going into everything, like May, when it was about to be Judges Week, which is where you take the E3 things early, right?
Yeah.
I remember feeling my lymph node and it was swollen up. And I was like, fuck, I'm about to get sick right before Judges Week. And I think it had been 2 years before where I had caught a cold during Judges Week, and it was the worst because I'm like in a hotel taking Dayquil, but then still trying to go take demo appointments, and it was the worst.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to get sick. And then I didn't get sick at Judges Week.
Okay.
And then it was this thing, and it was E3, and it was that. And I'm like, I'm still not sick, but I noticed my other lymph node had swollen up.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to get this checked out, but I don't have time right now. I'm back for 3 days a week. You know what I mean? It's you fly back Sunday night and then you leave again Wednesday usually for these trips.
You don't have a lot of time at all.
Exactly. And so like I had a finish line in the distance I could see where my friend was getting married at the end of August, and it was my final, or August I should just say, and it was my final, like, this is the point I need to get to. When I crossed that, or I guess it was end of July going into August, I apologize, going into That's my final travel. So when it's done, no big deal. I'll get this checked out. Da 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 da. And at some point in that, all of a sudden, this other growth appeared on my behind my collarbone, but coming over like a finger reaching over. Yeah, you could feel it. It was a three-dimensional.
That's not supposed to be there.
Exactly. But still, like, you know how your mind works, right? Or at least my mind. I don't know about you. Usually I get something, and I've done it before where it's like, oh my God, there's this weird thing, or I got a bump somewhere, and you go check, and the doctor's like, that's totally normal. Why would you come in? This isn't nothing. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. So you just push health problems. Like,
Exactly.
Not a big deal.
And I'm like, I'll get to it. So you jump to this friend's wedding back in Chicago, and the story goes that my girlfriend at the time, Christine Steimer, she'd never been to Chicago, so we went downtown. In the weddings, like out in the burbs where I grew up, went downtown and went up to the Hancock Building Observatory, and we got up to the glass, and I got up to the glass, and I felt like vertigo. I got dizzy, and I was like, that's not usual for me, but it's like I can't tell if that's what this is or if it's something else. And I'm like, I'll drink some water and monitor the situation. We went back down, went shopping on Michigan Avenue. Christine used to always yell at me because I get this wrong. She wanted to go to the purse shop, which I believe is Chanel, which is the fancy, expensive purse shop.
I know nothing.
For a long time, I said Coach, and I think that's not. And she used to yell at me because that made it sound like, what do you? Why? That's because I'm like, it's a fancy shop. She's like, Coach isn't fancy. No one knows what you're saying. I think it's Chanel.
I don't know the difference.
Doesn't matter. She had a gift certificate for her birthday.
Okay.
We went in there. She's looking around. I'm walking with her. And she's like, I'm going to go look at those over there. And I'm like, cool. I'm going to sit down over there. And like they had the boyfriend husband couch. I'm like, I'm going to go sit over there on this chair. And I sat down and I Googled heart attack symptoms because the walls were pulsating in.
Oh my.
Like it was like, oh no, you weren't dizzy because of the height, and something's fucking wrong right now.
Okay.
And I did it, and heart attack symptoms don't include pulsating walls. And I was like, I'm not going to be the motherfucker who orders a ambulance on Michigan Avenue. Like, I don't want to do that and go to some weird thing. I'm like, and it settled down. I was like, all right, cool. Like, let's continue to monitor. Da, da, da. Jump ahead to the reception for the wedding. I've been drinking. Everybody's been drinking. And I'm talking to one of my friends who is a doctor. And I start explaining all this. He's like, get up. I'll give you an examination. We're all drunk. He's like, get up. I'll give you an examination. And he reaches up. And he's like, yeah, your lymph nodes are swollen. Yeah, this is concerning. And one of our girlfriends walked behind him, and I don't even know if she's still in the picture, honestly, because it was like a connection of my best friends, college friends. This is one of their girlfriends. I don't know her, and she just goes, she's drunk too. She's like, oh, that's just Hodgkin's lymphoma. That's the one you want. And just walked away. And
what?
And because she has known somebody that happened to, and my friend who's like there, he's like, I'm not panicking about it. He's like, don't worry about that. Just get it checked out. I'm like, I'll get it checked out. I get home. Get the doctor's appointment. I go in there, and I always tell a story, it's one of those funny because I can't remember, but it's memorable, where I went in and it was, oh yeah, my lymph nodes are swollen, but I'm more worried about this. And I can't remember if it was my knee. Maybe I thought my dick was going to fall off. Something else was like way more concerning to me. You know what I mean? And he checked the knee, and he was like, no, it's not that. That's fine. Don't worry about that. And then he's like, what's the other thing? I'm like, oh, my lymph nodes. And it was one of those where he reaches up and he's like, and his eyes immediately go wide.
Okay.
And I was like, And then he went down, and he's like, okay. And he walked over, and he got a ruler, and he came back and started measuring everything and taking down notes. And he's like, how long is it? He's like, all right, cool, I'll be right back. Left, came back in. He's like, these are concerning. Yeah. I'd like you to get it wouldn't have been a PET scan, so it would have been a CAT scan, right? He's like, I want you to go get a CAT scan. I want you to go get this stuff checked out. And if you're going to have foreign listeners, I always stress this part of the story. You know it better than anybody how slow the American medical system is. Oh, you need to get this checked out. 3 weeks later, you will get you in there or whatever.
If you can pay for it.
Don't even get me started on the money. His nurse comes in with a Post-it note, and she hands it to me, and she goes, you have a CAT scan in 45 minutes. You have one at 2:45.
Oh, my.
And I was like, that's a bad sign.
Yes.
And it's not in this facility. Like, you've got to go now, and you got to get over there. And
that's unusual here.
And so I went there, and I get in the tube, and they go, and the guy comes there, and is like, oh, it'll be 5 minutes. Don't worry. I'm like, all right, great. Go in the tube, and then it just stops. And I sit there for like another 5, 7, 10 minutes or whatever it was. It's, feels long. And it wasn't, the machine isn't on, so I know like, all right,
they're out there talking.
They're doing something, and Ivana comes over and says, oh, sorry, just 1 second. We're having a thing back here. Okay, I'm like, all right. 5 more minutes. He's like, hey, sorry, what we want to do, just to bring you up to speed, is we want to scan lower, but we need to get permission from your doctor or the resident on call. So we've paged both of them. We'll get back to you. I'm like, oh, God. And 10 minutes later, they're like, all right, like, we can't get them, but, come on out. It's no big deal. And they bring me out. And like, you've been in there long enough or whatever. And I immediately call that doctor friend again, and I'm like, so they get a preview, right? I know they're not going to diagnose me off it, and he's like, yeah. And I'm like, so they saw something clearly below me, because they only went to like the center of my chest. And he's like, yeah, they saw something else. I'm like, great, just making sure. Da, da, da. So the cards go, you know what I mean? That yeah, I have cancer. I get the before I get the diagnosis from the doctor, like everything's posted online for you in your private little file, and I'm reading it all and like Googling words, and it's like very much like they're like, yeah, it's clearly cancer, but we can't make the diagnosis. The doctor's got to make the diagnosis.
So what's when that's happening, what's going on inside you?
This is what's going on is naivete. And so what goes on is I read it, and I'll never forget reading it at IGN and reading the first part where it's like, this is a cancerous, like basically this is a cancerous growth. They said it some other way. And I got teared up for a second, and then it passed.
Huh.
And then I started printing off all my documentation, what I'm going to, highlighting words and da-da-da-da. And I am Christine at the time. She wasn't at IGN any longer. And I'm like, yeah, it looks, oh no, I'm jumping ahead. Sorry. The story's, so fraught with things.
It's all right.
But I printed it all off. I come home. Colin had already kind of known we were PlayStation team guys, and we were living together. So I'd been keeping up to date on what was happening. We came home with all the documentation. Our other roommate Mike came home, and he was me like, "What's going on?" Because like I was over there and I had this file. I'm like, "I might have cancer. It looks like I have cancer." I'm like, okay, blah blah blah. And so we, the doctor calls me then later. I have the appointment. You have cancer. It's official. It's Hodgkin's lymphoma stage 2. This is what's happening. Da da da. And what had happened is, I had, Wikipedia at Hodgkin's lymphoma, right? And when he's like stage 2 or whatever, it's like, oh, it's like 86 percentile survival rate. And I'm like, I'm going to be fine. And like, because there's like things
there's
like
only a 14% chance I'll die.
Well, it's like the 14% though is like such a rarity, and it's this thing, and it's an older person, and da-da. It's like, okay, cool. And it begins the all too brief period where I'm like, this is kind of cool.
Really?
Yeah. I'm like, you know what I mean? It sucks to have cancer, sure. Like, I don't want to lose my hair. I don't want to, go through all this. I don't want to mainly I was like, I don't want to lose my hair. It'll be cool to lose weight. But I'm like, mainly it's like, it'll be cool to have a story. And to show you how fucked up I was at IGN, it's still kind of funny when I struggle with it every day, where I'm like, what's exciting about this is that every other week, I get 3 hours off where I don't have to check email or worry about it. I can just play Vita, and I can get trophies, and I can have a good time. And I shit you not, that's a real thought I have. Not like I could have taken that time anytime I wanted, of course, but you feel like I was running the PlayStation team. I was very serious about my job. I was doing all these different things. And like, my work is who I am. It is my life. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not the, what is it? Work to live, not live to work. And I'm like, no, I really like work. I really like what I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that'll be talking for another time of how I'm trying to struggle with that right now and change that. But I was like, oh, no big deal, whatever. And so the reason I have this fucked up conception of cancer is Tim Grant. Okay. And so to jump back in the past, you're going to cover Tim Grant, super crazy chemo thing he's got to go to. I follow him around for months. I'm at his birthday party. He wanted for his birthday party a superhero party, so everybody shows up in superhero costumes. His teacher is talking to me. She breaks down in tears. Like, everybody wants me to beat this.
Let's stop here for a second.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the first time you met him.
Okay, sure.
Tell me about that. The very first time you actually met Tim
Sure.
face to face. You get the assignment. How does this happen?
I reached out to his family. His parents were super, super nice folks. They were really accommodating, awesome, and I'll never forget it. Yeah, because I go to their house, and it's on, it's out in the outskirts of, it's outside of Columbia.
Yeah.
And small town Missouri, and it's a modest home, and I open the door, and the dad is playing Lego Star Wars, and Tim is sitting next to him.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I play this game. This is when Lego Star Wars is a big deal on PS2. I'm like, I play this game too, or whatever.
How old was Tim at this point?
He would have been 6 because I was there for his 7th birthday, I believe. The article's still up; you can check it. But then it's like you walk around the house. They show me his room. He has like the Spider-Man like fat heads on the wall, and he's wearing a Superman shirt, and he has a Nintendo DS. And by the end of this, I'm like, I'm a guy who doesn't think he wants kids for the most part. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure that'll always be the case.
Okay.
But if I wanted a kid, I would have had a Tim Grant.
What was it about Tim? Was it?
It's the fact that he would. I see myself in him. I see all this superhero stuff. I see the video games. I see all this passion for the same thing I had. And the problem I had was that I show up and I'm in a shirt and a tie, and I have a little notebook, and I'm just observing, right? Because it's like I'm not going to get much out of Tim. And not only do I not want to walk all over this kid as he goes through this, it's mainly about his parents, his interactions with his parents. Like, my story about Tim, ends up being him talking to someone in the room rather than talking to me. You know what I mean? It's me monitoring the situation, him talking, and then walking off with a nurse and talking to her about what he means, or his teacher, or his parents, and all these different things.
So Tim's really important to you.
Yeah.
But from the time you met him, were you ever important to Tim?
You're jumping ahead in the story.
All right,
Jared.
let's keep going then.
So I get there, I see his house. He's a cool, super cool kid. I always say this is always a hard thing for I think a lot of people to wrap their head around. Maybe I was just naive, which is also very possible. Well, I already said it. This whole story is about naivete. It's 06 probably now, I think. Again, you can check the actual story yourself, but it could be 05, 06, 07. It doesn't matter. What I'm driving at is that there has been no movie 50-50 with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, right?
Okay.
Which I really think was like, I'm going to go get, people saw that movie, I'm going to go get chemo, and he gets a bag, and it's in his arm, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, everybody's like, that's what chemo is. Or maybe they saw somebody go through it. I didn't, my parents had, or my grandparents had cancer. I didn't see anything happen, like, on the chemo thing. You know what I mean?
You just sit in the big poofy chair, and they plug the thing into your arm.
And that was the thing. I didn't even
that's
see
right?
that, right? So, like, I remember driving it was a 2-hour drive, obviously, to St. Louis to go see Tim get this chemo or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the car with my photographer, and my interpretation in my head of what I was about to see was Tim put into a tube, like an iron lung, and be basically a CAT scan. I thought that's how you got chemo, is that you got, like, irradiated with it, or radiation therapy, which is totally different.
Yeah, different treatment.
And so I get there, and we walk in, and we're up on the 37th floor or whatever, and it's this great view of St. Louis. And Tim walks in, he sits in a chair, they bring out the first bag, and they plug it into a port in his stomach, like a little thing he had. And he sits there and he plays DS. And this goes on for like 4 hours. He plays DS, he gets up, he plays with some trucks, he walks to the window, he talks to his mom, makes a joke to the nurse. And only once did he say, he did something, and his mom's like, is your tummy hurt? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, just lay down for a little bit. And he laid down for a little bit. And I was like, oh, that's not what I thought this was at all. No big deal. Okay, cool. Good for him. That's great. You know what I mean? And so I continue to follow him for the story, and I'm, it's not looking good. It's neuroblastoma. He's got these huge tumors on his neck and all this stuff, and he loves that, and his video games and all these different things. And I'm still working that swing shift, and so I had been talking to my editor about it, and he had been like, it's coming along well. I like everything you're saying. You need to get more out of him, though. And I'm like, well, it's so hard because I'm Clark Kent when he sees me, you know what I mean? Like, he is like a kid I'd want to have. He is somebody like when he grows up, I'd want to hang out with probably.
You like this young man, but he's not somebody that relates to you.
Because he doesn't know. I've never been able to. It's how do you prove you're not just a suit and you actually know everything about Spider-Man and Superman as well? You know what I mean? Like, what are you playing on the DS? You want to play League Beats Agents? You know what I mean? And so they were like, all right, cool. Like, take Tuesday and just go over in plain clothes and just hang out and play with them. Like, we'll cover all the other articles. I was like, that's awesome. And this must have been a conversation like Friday before everybody left or whatever. I'm like, great, thank you so much. Da 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 da. Jump ahead to Monday. Then I'm at home. I'm in my shorts. I'm sitting there on my day off playing Lego Star Wars, trying to get all the red bricks. And I got a phone call and I answered it, and I was like, hello. And it was the pastor for the family, and Tim had died. Tim had died that Monday morning, I think. Maybe it was Sunday night. But it was not out of the blue. We knew things were going poorly, but we didn't know we were there.
Yeah.
And so
no one had warned you that death was imminent.
And we were there right as I was, because that's how confident they were in where he was. Right, is the fact that I was going to be able to hang out with him on a Tuesday, the next day, and play video games and do all these things. But it turned out, I guess it would have been technically, it would have been either super late Sunday or early morning.
So that Tuesday
Monday
was the day you were going to make friends with him. He was going to.
He was going to see that I'm cool like him. You know what I mean? That we have the same interests, and I'm not just some guy with a notepad floating around talking on the outskirts of all your people or all your parents. And so then the story, shifts from being how they were going to beat this or what it's going to be to now the aftermath of that, and going to his funeral and covering that, and like, watching his little sister, who I opened my story with the little sister letting go of a balloon with everybody else, and it's like she doesn't know that she's letting go of a balloon at her brother's funeral. And I forget, her name was Gracie. I want to say she was 1 or 2, maybe 1.5.
Too young to really understand.
No real idea of what's happening. Yeah.
Now, Greg, I don't want to be overly painful here, because this is painful to relate, I imagine. But
yeah.
I mean, when you got that news, what was your response? Were you in shock?
Yeah, it was shock. I mean, because like the story goes that Tim Grant is an incredibly important person to me in my life, but I don't know that until I get removed from it. Yeah. Where it's like it happens, and I'm stunned. I probably, did maybe a couple tears or whatever, right? But then it was back to the job and trying to compartmentalize and doing all this different stuff.
And you just moved on with life. This was a tragedy,
right?
Was it?
But the thing about it is, I move on with my life, but I immediately notice a change. And I guess this will help us set it down.
That's good.
This will help us set up the time period really well on when he died. Is that I had just gotten my Wii, and I got my Wii at launch.
Okay.
So what year are we?
Oh, that would be 2006.
Nailed it. So what had happened is, since I had missed that opportunity to connect with Tim, what I did is, and this is one that we super hard to find. Obviously, it's a different thing.
I remember those dark days.
I started a weekly session where I went to the Columbia Children's Hospital with the Wii, and I brought my games and would plug it in and let people play and do whatever they wanted for these kids who couldn't get out.
You just started doing this.
Yeah.
Were you cognitive of the fact that this was connected to what happened to Tim?
Yeah, it was in a way, but it was more of the fact of like, oh, I've seen what it's like to be in a hospital and be a kid. This sucks, and I have this, and I'd love to go play Wii tennis with people. Why not? You know what I mean?
Okay.
But it wasn't like I'm doing this because of Tim.
I wondered, had you ever done anything like this before?
No, 100% no.
Okay.
Yeah. But it is also that, like, I'm just out of college by, I guess at that point, a year and a half or whatever. Like, I'm not an adult by any means.
Stretching the muscles of adulthood.
Exactly.
So you start doing this, and then you have your Wii. Then what happens?
I get picked up at IGN pretty shortly thereafter.
Okay.
Move out there, and I for a brief second think about doing it here, but San Francisco is much harder to navigate, and there's different things going on, and I'm broke as hell, and I don't live, near a children's hospital, and there's, all these different problems.
So, when does this young boy who who died, right after his 7th birthday?
Yeah.
Right. When does this young man become somebody you found that you were thankful for?
I get cancer. I get cancer and discover I'm going to have to go through chemotherapy every other week. I don't care. I'm totally like, whatever. Okay, this sucks. It'll be fine. But I remember, like, to show you how, like, I talk about how I was naive with Tim.
Yeah.
To show you how naive I am about what I was about to face, I call my friends and family that night. Like when it's finally a diagnosis, and I know that I'm going to put the blog up the next day, and I'm going to tell everybody at IGN the next day.
Yeah.
I call my family the night before, and my friends, and for mom and dad, I played a bit differently, but I'm very jovial about the whole situation. Where mom, I'm like, hey, she's like, why are you calling me? Because I don't call my parents during period, let alone during the week. You know what I mean? Like something's wrong, and I'm like, hey, I have something to tell you. And this is my mom. Don't freak out. And I immediately go, you know what? I'm sorry. That's not the right reaction. You do whatever you have to do. I'm sorry. I have cancer. And she breaks down, of course. Yeah. And then I call my dad. And my dad is very much like, our audience knows him he did an exclusive Game Over Greggy with us. He's very much the blue collar, the Chicago construction worker, the emotional rock guy. Yeah. And so I call him, and I thought this is going to be super easy. And I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And, I have cancer. And it's met with deafening silence.
Wow.
And so I immediately start feeling, I'm like, well, but it's not a bad cancer, and it's this, that, and he's like, okay, and I walk him through everything that's going to happen.
Now, you actually used the term, this is how I played this.
Yeah.
Where you were trying to, were you trying to console these folks?
Sure.
Did it just not feel dangerous to you?
It didn't feel dangerous to me at all.
Right.
And so then I call my friends, and this is the real thing of like how off base I am with like reality, where I call my friends, and they're all like, what's wrong? What's going on? You never call, let alone at the middle of the night. And I go, what do you think I'm calling about? And I make them guess.
You made them guess you have cancer?
No. It was like I'd be like, why do you think I'm calling? Yeah, you're getting married? No, like you didn't know.
I was just imagining the world's like most morbid 20 questions game.
Totally. Well, I cut them off after 1 or 2. Usually, I'm like, no, I have cancer, and this is what's gonna happen. I want to ask tomorrow, and everybody's upset. But it's like this whole thing, and it's like I don't vocalize to people of like, oh, it's not a big. I do say it's not a big deal, but I'm not like, oh, I can't wait to play Vita, and that's not gonna be, whatever. It's my whole thing was it's gonna be a story. It's a wrinkle to my life. I'm gonna be fine, so it's just something to do right now. No big deal, whatever. Tell IGN, I'll never forget having everybody gathered around at IGN and telling them, and then like Naomi broke down, like, and I was like, whoa, chill. It's not that, it's not that bad.
I just have a life-threatening disease.
Exactly, and so then it goes that we go to that first chemo.
Yeah.
And, Christine had just gotten her job at PlayStation at the time. And so she was very adamant about, I'm going to take these days off. I'm like, you just got a job. You can't take every other Friday off. She's like, I'm going to make them understand. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, I will take Muni there. I will take the bus to chemo, and I will chemo. She's like, you are not Muniing to chemo.
You have this mental image of chemo based on
this is
visits,
nothing
based on the plug-in. You weren't around for the aftermath. You weren't
exactly.
around for what ravages happened.
Right, and so that like that was the thing of. She's like, no, not gonna do that. Blah, blah, blah. So we go to this chemo. We sit down and like, all right, it's gonna be we get there at like I don't know 1 o'clock or whatever. And it's gonna be like 3-4 hours of this that's gonna go on or whatever. I'm like, oh, but they run me through all the things. All right, great, blah blah. They come in, they give me a banana bag of saline. I'm like, all right, and they come in, they're like, all right, first off, we 1 in 100,000 people are allergic to this drug or whatever. So we give you a little under your skin. They put it under my skin just to make sure you're okay. And they do it, and they pull back. And I'm like, ow. I'm like, that hurt? I'm like, yeah. And like, huh. All right, we'll keep an eye on it. No big deal. All right, cool. This is what's happening here. We're giving you the saline. This is the bell. When you need water, when you need a snack, just ring the bell. We'll come help you. And I'm like, all right, great. Blah, blah, blah. And so I look, and like they leave, and I turn back to Christine. She's telling me some story, and we're just sitting there, blah blah blah, and then just out of the blue, like entire left side of my body goes dead. Just
Wow.
like you're sitting there, and I can't describe the feeling because there is none. But all of a sudden, there's no feeling in anything on the left side of my
Half
body.
of your body just stops working.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I yank up my arm, and I always talk about it being like a wet pasta noodle, and I slam it down on the bell. And Christine goes, "What's wrong?" And I go, "The left side, left side." And I had seen enough wrestling with JR, when Jim Ross got Bell's palsy to know I'm like, everything's dead on the left side of my body. And the nurse comes in, she's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, well, everything's dead on the left side of my body. And she's like, "All right, I'll go get the doctor." And she runs out of the room, and Christine's like, "Just keep talking to me. Tell me what's happening." And I'm like, "Entire left side of my body is dead, and your mouth is tinfoil." And she goes, "What do you mean my mouth is tin?" And the doctor comes back in. He's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "The left side of my body is tinfoil. I'm sorry, the left side of my body is dead, and all of your mouths in the room is becoming tinfoil." And he's like, "You're having an allergic reaction to bleomycin." And as he's talking, it just creeps in around I can just see eyes, and the rest is crinkly tinfoil giving off like the prism, like the rainbow colors of everything.
Wow.
And they're like, "That's why we gave you the test to see if this would happen. You're clearly allergic to bleomycin. There's nothing we can do but let it run its course." And like, this is all happening in a much faster, frantic pace.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well,
And-
yank it
and-
out of my
and a
arm."
horrifying universe.
And I'm like,
that
"Yank it out of my arm, then yank it out of my arm." They're like, "No, that's the saline. That's not what you're allergic to. That's actually going to flush it. We need to leave it. But like, we're going to have to wait this out and blah, 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 and you'll come back and blah, blah, blah." So eventually, yeah, like 45 minutes later, we're back on track. I can see again or whatever. And so they come back in like, "All right, we're going to have to give you this different drug then. We're still going to have to give you all these other drugs. We still haven't given you any drugs technically, so we have to keep going." And so it's like, "All right, great." And they came back in and like, they put one in and then you get it. And like, I'm sensitive to light all of a sudden. And then they come back in and he comes back in for like the second or third one. And he's in like riot shield mask and these gloves and this giant blue tarp. And I'm like, and he's got this syringe of like neon red fluid. And he's like, "We have to take precautions with this one because if it gets on your skin or your clothes, it'll eat it." And I was like, "All right, but you're injecting it into
my body.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
if
yeah.
this touches my skin, it will burn me.
Right. So they put it through and like, "All right,
Now,
great."
Greg, you're being very. It is
Sure.
in your demeanor.
Sure.
To show a positive nonchalance.
Right.
Inside you, what's happening during all this? I mean,
It's shock again. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Of like, what is going on? Like, this is not what I expected. This is not how this was supposed to go. What is happening? Da 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 da.
fear or not?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So like what goes on is that they give me the rest of them. We get out of there like 6 or 6:30 or whatever, and like I get back in that car and Christine's like Mini Cooper and just like in a sweatshirt against the thing, and it's like silent ride home. You know what I mean? I'm sure we talk
Yeah.
a little bit, but it's just like, whew. And like we get home and she's like, "I'm gonna go to the store. I'm gonna buy us food." Because again we were like, I was so whatever. We'll go to dinner that night. It won't be a big deal. Da 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 da. We'll
Even
figure it
then.
out. Yeah, but this is before.
Okay.
Then we get, and I'm like, "All right, cool."
Alright.
So she drops me off at the house. I come inside, and I'll never forget it. That I come into the room and I turn the corner at my dresser and I go to walk into my bathroom. And like you were just in my room,
Yeah.
that hallway there with the closet, like
Yeah.
there's a closet on both sides, just break down. And it all hits me that it's not that I was so naive about everything, and I'm so naive about Tim, which now reflects on me years later of how brave he was. And
So
how,
he comes to your mind, right?
exactly.
Here. That's the
Oh my
moment it hits?
God.
Yeah.
Oh my. It's all I can think about at that point, and not how tough my day was, just on the fact of like I so undersold this because he was so good at it. You know what I mean? He was so brave. Like because chemo will go on for me another 6 months. Right? I was supposed to be on a 9-month schedule, but I got it in 6, and no chemo is ever the same. I probably play a grand total of an hour of Vita because your eyes hurt. I wear sunglasses in there. You pull a hood over. Sometimes I'll get nauseous. Eventually the saline started to make me sick, so I'd have to eat Jolly Ranchers when they gave me shots. So that like it was, like the lens wipes you use at IGN.
Yeah.
Like when I used to open those once a week, and even opening those would make me gag because the smell it tastes like the saline. Because
Wow.
when they give you the saline, it hits your blood. It immediately goes to your taste buds.
Okay, you taste it right
And
there.
so it was like all these different things of like, I talk about it where I think it was a month or a month and a half in or whatever, where we were getting I was getting another chemo and I broke down in tears, and Christine goes, "What?" And I'm like, "This isn't fun anymore." And she goes, "When was it ever fun?" And I'm like, I didn't think it was going to be like this. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't understand what this was going to be. I only knew Tim's story. I only knew Tim's struggle, but having not having had that relationship with him, there's no, and he's not an adult either. There's no way for me to sit there and talk to him about what chemo was actually like for him. And so like, not only is it jarring for the Tim story of it, that this is like, I'm so suddenly so thinking of him and Columbia and the Tribune, which he's, I don't even remember anymore, 3 months into chemo, 4 months into chemo, whatever. I wake up one day and open the computer, and there's a message to me on Twitter, I believe. And it was from a guy I didn't know at the Tribune, but it now worked at the Tribune. And he's like, Greg, I don't know if you'll see this, but Irene died. And Irene was this awesome columnist we had who also had Hodgkin's lymphoma, who was this basically like your raunchy grandmother, right? Like she was like the office mascot. That she wrote this humor column. She was amazing. She was sharp as a whip till the day she died. She was just fucking awesome. And when I got there, she took me under her wing because like we were like very much the same personality. You know what I mean? We'd go out for wings. Like this is like an awesome fucking lady. And she had clunked her head, and she's a woman who had beaten cancer and done all this stuff and all these horrible things that happened to, but she overcame, turned them into fucking hilarious columns and books and stuff like that. And then hit her head. And like, it was one of those where she hit her head, but like it was still in the hospital talking and cracking jokes. But then I'm rusty on her story at this point. Maybe a blood clot or something to that effect, where it was like, oh, she's going to be fine. Nope, she's dead.
Yeah.
And it was just out of the blue. And I get that. I call this guy that I don't know. I break down. I'm crying to Christine, obviously, about it. And I was like, and I'm home because it's a chemo day. It's Friday morning. I'm going to chemo. And I'm like, I'm going to this funeral tomorrow in Columbia. And Christine's like, there's no fucking way you are. Like, Christine had to be like fucking truth warrior a lot with me back then.
Yeah.
Of like, no, you're not. Like, you can't.
It sounds like if I hope this isn't rude, but it sounds like denial was kind of the order of the day.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Well, it's because but it was like, it's one of those things of, like right now, if my mom called or her husband called, like, your mom's in the hospital, it's like microphone down and I'm out.
Yeah.
I call or I yell at Kevin to take care of Patillo and I'm out the fucking door.
Right.
And like that's what the connection I had with this Tribune family, with Irene in particular, and also like to bring it back, Porty. To bring it back to another sad moment before this, like I felt a lot of regret because George had died. George had gotten sick after I left, and nobody told me. Nobody had told me that he was gonna die and this stuff. So one day I followed, I still follow the Tribune on Twitter, and I was walking Portillo outside of the old apartment, and I looked down and it was like, Tribune editor dead. I was like, who the hell? Who would have died? And I clicked on it, it was George, and I was devastated. And like the services were that day. There was no way for me to make it.
So you're finding these people left behind have died.
Yeah.
You're going through this. You keep thinking. So here's what I need to ask you about this, because the first question I want to bring this back around is, tell me about somebody you're thankful for.
Mm-hmm. I'm thankful for Tim.
When did you become thankful for Tim? When did it transform from here's a boy I knew to here's an experience I can relate to as you're breaking down that doorway, to here's that memory of him in the chemo? Where does where's the click? Where does the shift
I mean, the
happen?
click is when I break down in the hallway, because that's where all the pieces come together to show like, oh no, like I thought I was covering the story and I did it fine, but I didn't have his experience. And now that I'm living his experience, I now know on a level. It's always that thing, like to this day, somebody will tweet at me that they have cancer, and I follow back and DM with them, because I understand what that means and how that's going to go. And suddenly there's a shorthand and there's crib information here that like to set you up and to know what you're about to go through. And I tell them, take someone to chemo, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And do this. And I remember there was a guy, I won't name names or whatever, who was like, he was in England and he wasn't sure if he was going to have somebody. And I was like, I will come. Like, I will fly myself out there to come
get somebody there.
Yeah, like you don't do this alone. This isn't something you can possibly go and do yourself. And that's the thing where he gives me that scope, that gets me involved with Extra Life, that makes me motivated to go do all these different things on a different level. I think I already might have done Extra Life, but suddenly I know like you know what I mean? Like, I consider myself a pretty fearless person, right? Like, now granted, most of that's because like early on in my life, I had to get used to being fat and unathletic, and you got to be the funny guy, and you got to make fun of yourself and this, that, and there. And like death in general doesn't scare me. I'm not afraid to die if I die tomorrow or whatever. You know what I mean? Blah, blah. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want to jump out of an airplane.
You're not in a hurry, but
exactly.
You're not particularly afraid.
But like, I now have my greatest fear is like getting sick, getting cancer again, because now I know what that means and what that will be and how that will fuck me up. And I'm very blessed that I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
To go into that knowing what I was about to do would be a completely different story.
How would your life be different if you hadn't known Tim?
I mean, cancer would have been probably way more scary, right? Because it would have been the great unknown in terms of like, what is this going to be? I thought I had a great handle on it. And it's naive and it's stupid when you look back at it, but it did allow me to get through all of that. It did get me, like, I had that like runner's boost, right? Of like, I started out of the block strong, where I was like, no big deal. And then even like, you get the first one, like the first bad cancer chemo, and it's like, all right, next one won't be so bad. And like, it's a little bit different, but it's not great. But it's not, like, you have ups and downs where they're this, that, and the other. And it's just like, I did, you know, you talk about me not being mean or whatever. Like, you never see me mean to me. Like, I was a dick when I had cancer, and like, I never came back from that. Like, you know what I mean? I was a much different person before I got sick. But like, something changes inside of you. Not, and I don't mean like, well, mentally I do mean, but I mean like, getting the chemo and going through all that gave me a hair trigger. And it was like, I was always, I'm Banner, right? I'm always angry. And it was always just beneath the surface. And I always credit like, Casey and Steve were such great bosses at the time, because like literally Casey would walk over and be like, "What's up, man?" I'd be like, "Fuck off." And I'd be a dick to him. I'd be like totally insubordinate to my boss, or I'd have my hood up and everyone would leave me alone. And I already understood like something was happening, but I don't think I can't even express to you the rage inside of me at any point on any given day on any of these weeks. Because it's like, you get the chemo and then you still have all these days of shit. Right. And then maybe as you just start to feel good, you get it again. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just this constant cycle of almost feeling there and then being fucking so mad at everything. And the story, you know, the story I always tell is like, I was at IGN and I was super pissed. I was just fucking furious all day long. Work's finally done. I get on the Muni. I pull up my hood, put on my sunglasses because light hurt my eyes. And I'm on the Muni just sitting there cross-armed. I don't want to play Vita. I don't want to do anything. I just want to get home and I just want to go into pajamas and lay down in bed. And the Muni sucks, of course, so it breaks down. This happens. And it's I finally get off the Muni. I walk up to the house. I open the front door right out there. And I'm finally home. And I open it up, and the story goes that I look into the kitchen, and there's something there that makes me mad. And it's literally, it must have been like, there was a recycling thing on the floor. Like, it's not like a real thing, but it's like the straw. And I'm finally home, and I just slam the door behind me, and I yell, "Fuck!" And as I slam the door, the deadbolt falls out and slams into the door jamb and bends the wrong way and like chips the door jamb all up. And it was just like, I did this thing and I turned around and I have a new problem. And I went to my bedroom and I got the hammer and I fixed the lock the best I could, which is still fucked up to this day. And I just got it and I went and laid down. It was just like, that was the thing of like, it just, you couldn't get away from it because it's everything and it saturates you. And that's why I wrestled with it, you know, like you know, who am I thankful for? I'm thankful for Christine, obviously. Like, we're no longer a couple. You know what I mean? We still love each other, obviously. We're going to be friends forever. But, like, for those 6 months, I'm not a good person.
Yeah.
And she sees it on a level nobody else does. You know what I mean? Like, I hide it from you guys. And I hide it from everybody else, my mom and everybody else. But, like, she doesn't get to be hidden from it. And I'm not a good partner. And I'm not a good person. So I'm thankful for her, too. In a different way, obviously. But like, you know, that's a gut check refining moment all around in terms of cancer and what that actually does to you. And yeah,
fundamentally transformative.
Yeah,
like. Yeah. I'm glad I know you now, Greg.
I'm glad you know me too.
I truly am. I got one more for you on this, and then we're gonna switch over to some lighter stuff.
Okay, sure.
But one.
You ask away. I'm an open book. You know that.
Yeah, I know. That you are the open book. If you could see Tim again,
oh God,
what would you do?
I mean, I feel like a hug's appropriate. You know what I mean? Like, I understand his struggle, and he understands mine. And I never got to express that to him. He never got to express it to me. So, I mean, that would be the big thing, right? I mean, thank him. Like, he doesn't know, like, you know what I mean? He doesn't know how he's influenced my life. He doesn't know that, like, in that the small fingerprint, not because he's a small person, but, like, the small time we had together, like, the way he left I always talk about fingerprints left on my heart or my life, right? Or my soul. Like, he did, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to be as helpful in Extra Life. I'm not a source for people who are getting cancer or diagnosed with cancer, our friends and fans to come talk to. You know, I mean, there's all these different things. Well, I guess I would be now, but you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't understand on the level I understand what this is and what it was and what he meant.
So you tell him that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Greg, thank you. I know that's a hard story.
No,
to relate.
thank you.
I can't even imagine. Thank you for being willing to be so transparent.
And see, this is why I was so excited to have cancer. I got podcast material for the rest of my life.
I'm glad you're able to laugh too.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's the only way you can do it. And like it's that weird thing, you know what I mean? Like it seems like such a different life. You know what I mean? Like I always talk, I'm a big Superman fan, as I continue to say. And so I'm used to, how DC reboots continuity all the time, but they keep certain aspects of it. And I always talk about, like my divorce was a continuity reboot where it's like, all right, the marriage thing isn't working for Greg as a character anymore, so get that out, but keep the dog. Like everybody likes the dog, so he'll sleep. All right, let's give him cancer. The cancer isn't working, get it out. And so it's that super rare thing where, you know how it is. You look at yourself in the mirror and like you're totally not seeing the forest for the trees kind of thing, but I'll look down and I'll see my scar from my port. Yeah. I was like, all right. Or like when I don't think about it ever, but like when I'm in a video and I guess I'm really good at it, like even in this one, right? But like when I'll turn this way or whatever and you see the white spot, I'm like, oh, right, that thing. You know what I mean? Of like that white spot only came back after my hair grew back. Like it was this weird thing where my body had a reaction there for one reason or another and just grew white hair.
So it's residual from your chemotherapy.
Right. And then the other one is this is a permanent scar from where they gave me the bleomycin.
Yeah.
Like that's how allergic I am to it.
Little pieces you carry around.
Yeah, like these little things where it's like you don't think about it at all, and then you look down on like that rare occasion or see an image like, oh right, that's a thing I do or had.
That's a part of my life. Yeah. I can't fathom it. I've never been through what you have. Thank you for this.
No problem.
We do a little kind of lightning round here at the end of questions about you.
Okay.
We've been talking about Tim and his.
Like I say, we do this. This is your first episode.
That's true, but I've recorded others.
No, don't spoil it. I'm supposed to see you first. You don't know.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, you get the idea.
Everybody support him on patreon.com/JaredPetty.
Oh, you're too sweet. But yeah, please do. Some quick ones.
Okay.
What's the best song written in the last 100 years?
Jamie by Weezer.
What's the first word you think of when you hear the sound of your own voice?
Laughter.
What's your favorite flavor of ice cream?
Chocolate.
If you could travel through time to meet anybody, who would you visit?
Oof, I always think, can I bring them with me or am I just talking to them?
You're just talking to them.
Do I have all the things in my pockets?
You can give them the things in your pockets.
I would love to see like Benjamin Franklin see some of the shit we got now. Oh. Come back there with like a fucking cell phone, be like, and even if it's just I have photos on my phone. You know what I mean? Like,
no, you're reading Ben Franklin's mind.
Oh yeah,
it's mine too.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Dude's incredible.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. But I'd love to bring him forward. You know what I mean? Like any of the founders. I mean, like him in particular because he's like such a character of the founders. But like to bring him here and be like, look at what happened. You know what I mean?
He's the Greg Miller of the founding fathers.
Yeah, that's what they say. He wanted the turkey.
Yeah. What's the most terrifying creature in the natural world?
Tarantulas.
What's your favorite word?
I jumped to fuck. I'm trying to do the clear your head. You know what I mean? I do like a good fuck.
Yeah.
The word.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's your word?
I mean, I like having sex as well. But
who was your first kiss?
Oh my God. A girl named Jessica.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is another, like not thankful for it, but like when you talk about, like parts of your life, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, she was the first person in, this is maybe another podcast.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. We'll say Jessica, which by the way, also weird. I'm starting to worry about the simpatico here. Also my first kiss, Jessica. There we are. Ben Franklin and Jessica.
That's it right there.
Things. Cake or pie?
I like cake.
Yeah.
I do like cake. You can get a bad cake, I understand, but like you get a good cake, I think it's better than a good pie.
Okay, that's and what's one question you have for me?
Oh man, I asked you so many today on the podcast.
Yeah, you did.
We
recorded earlier today. Yeah,
and Gamescast, I guess.
Which you should watch, subscribe to, and support. We hope.
What do you want to be doing?
What do I want to be doing?
Yeah.
In this moment in life.
Like I mean, right now, or even if you're like talking about building your career to a certain point.
In a dream world where I could do whatever I wanted, I would be that rarest of all creatures, the professional writer of books. If I could do anything I wished, that's what I'd be doing. I would make enough money writing books to support myself. I would write fiction and nonfiction. And I would write hardbound books and Kindle books and softcover books. And I would write hackery and I would write history and I would write something beautiful.
That's awesome.
That's what I would do if I could. It's my dream.
That's a good one.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you asking. Once again, Greg Miller, where can the internet find you in case they don't already know?
You can go find me at kindafunny.com. It's KINDA, not kind of. It's one of those things we hope you hear it and you understand what we say, but we're never sure.
Yeah. And making wonderful things. I really do encourage you guys.
Well, thank you so much. You were just on 2 of them, so go watch those episodes.
No, those are out there. They are. through the magic of nonlinear editing.
Right.
Greg, thank you so much for being a part of this.
Jared, thank you so much. It was an honor to be your first episode.
I'm glad to have you here. If you've got questions for Pockets Full of Soup, you can email us at mail@pocketsfulofsoup.com. You can also reach out to me on Twitter. I'm Petty, Jared. Or you can just go at Pockets Full of Soup. We hope you subscribe on YouTube. That's really important, extremely helpful for us. You can also find our direct download for the audio feed. We are headed to iTunes. At the time you hear this, I don't know if we're there yet. We'll find out. Hopefully. That is our hope. But if not, we're on the way. And until then, you can listen and watch in other places. You can find us at pocketsfulofsoup.com. And, of course, you can find us on ye old Patreon, where we hope that you'd be willing to support us. Take a look there. We have some good reward tiers, some neat exclusives, and things you might be interested in. So that's that. And until next time, the mystery of Pockets Full of Soup remains unanswered. So
is the next episode you're going to answer it?
Maybe I'll answer it next episode. Maybe. Okay. Who knows? Why is it a pocket full of soup? How does that happen?
Subscribe to find out.
Subscribe to find out. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Good night.